Thank you for all the positive feedback you gave me on my last photogrammetry videos. Because of all the feedback, I've decided to create another one. This is one I originally planned a while back, but then they came out with Blender 2.8 and I was confused by it. Now that I have a basic understanding of this Blender version, I'm going to show you how to create a 3D photogrammetry showcase. Today we're going to get a little experimental and have fun with Blender. This tutorial is meant for people interested in photogrammetry, 3D, digital experimentation, and people that want to find a unique way to showcase their content. Let's learn by getting hands-on, and let's become fully immersed in Blender and all of its powerful features. So here I've got Metashape open right now with my photogrammetry mossy rock. All the textures are generated, and we're going to jump right into this and export this 3D model out of Metashape. Go under File, Export Model, and just, title the model whatever you want. I'm going to call it Mossy Rock 3D. Save it in a folder that you'll remember. Export the texture as a PNG, JPEG, really whatever, but I recommend a PNG because it's uncompressed and you can get all the high quality data. So I'm going to hit OK, save the 3D model, and once it's done saving, I'm going to open up Blender 2.8. So I'm going to leave a link in the description. Download Blender, learn how to use Blender. It's a lot of fun. I'm going to jump right into Blender by opening it here. And voila, we've got our cube, our default cube. And you know what we do with the default cube? We delete it right away. So I'm going to go click the default cube and hit the delete key. Now, as you can see, I've got the key presses set up right now. So if you guys are confused about what buttons I'm pressing, just refer to the bottom left corner. You can see I'm clicking my middle mouse button to drag around the scene. Left click and right click are all displayed with this little mouse icon here. First things we're going to want to do in Blender is we're going to import our 3D photogrammetry model. Go up to File, Import, and in my case I'm using an OBJ file. So click OBJ and navigate to where you save the object file. I'm going to double click the Mossy Rock 3D, which I just exported. And boom, just like that, it loads up into Blender. Except the issue is, if I, unscroll here, zoom out, rotate around it, it's all crooked because I didn't take the time to properly align it. That's fine though, because I'm going to do that right here, right now. I'm just going to press R, drag up this way, select the transform, the move button up here, drag it up. Using the arrows, I'm just going to tweak it, center a little bit, and press R to rotate, move the angles around. You can also select this rotation button and you can grab this different axis here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure we got a material texture on here, and I'm going to set up the render engine here. So today we're going to be using the Eevee render engine. You can use Cycles or Eevee, whatever you're more comfortable with. Eevee is very optimized, and for the sake of the photogrammetry showcase I'm going to create today, Eevee should be sufficient. You can get some more advanced features, however, with Cycles in terms of lighting. So I definitely recommend looking into Cycles. I'm going to go right under Material Properties, which is this little button right here. And as you can see, it looks like it automatically loaded the texture from the folder. And you can see that because the base color is set to the PNG file of the texture. However, if it was not set to this for some reason, you could click this little dot here, go under Image Texture. You could select the file here, hit open, and then you navigate to the texture you want to apply here by double clicking it. And then you know it's in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this little button up here, and this is going to switch us to the viewport shading, which is going to give us a basic look at our texture. Now it's very dark right now. Rather than lighting the scene, I'm actually just going to remove the light from the scene completely by hitting delete on it. I'm going to select Surface, Emission. Now the reason I want to do this is because I want an unlit texture. It's just going to be emitting light essentially. So I'm going to go under Emission. Now you're going to see it's all bright and white right now. What we have to do is we have to drag this little dot where it says Color. We have to click Image Texture. And then we're going to hit Open and find our texture again. And there we go. As you can see, it loaded in. It's unlit now. There's no lighting in the scene. And that's going to make rendering really quick. And I like doing this just because I like to create very simple, high-resolution photogrammetry showcase videos. And oftentimes lighting isn't necessary because you have light baked into the image. Now, if you're doing a professional showcase, you might have delighted the texture, removed all the shadows, and then you can add your artificial lighting if you so desire. But for simplicity's sake, an unlit 3D model is all I need right now. Now I'm going to click, using this tool, the cursor tool, we can actually select the center of this model here. And I'm actually going to just turn that into the center of the 3D model, because when I rotate, I'm rotating from this point up here, which I don't want. So I'm just going to select right here using the cursor tool. This little tool up here, select, right click, set origin, and origin to 3D cursor. It's not a precise origin, but it's going to make it a little easier to rotate. So now that I've done that, I'm going to select the 3D cursor again and just select kind of at the bottom of the grid here, like right here. And I'm going to do Shift A to open up this little add menu. I'm going to add a plane. And I'm going to press, there's a little plane down there, it's very small. I'm going to press S, and I'm just going to drag to make the plane larger. So now there's this big gray plane here. You can see that in the scene collection, in this little layers browser here. You can see that. I'm going to select the move tool and drag it up, and as you can see, it clips through the rock if I drag it up. But I'm going to set it like right around here, so it does clip into the rock a little bit. I'm just going to rotate things and tweak things the way I like it. If I drag, if I want to make fine, precise adjustments, I can drag and hold Shift. And doing that makes it drag very slowly, which is very helpful. I'm pretty satisfied with the layout of the rock right now. So I'm going to select the plane and brighten up the scene a bit. I'm going to add a new material to the plane under the Materials tab by selecting New. I'm just going to brighten this up a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go select this little world button. And under background, you see background is right here. I'm going to set the color. I'm just going to make it brighter. I'm going to make it all very bright. Just white. Just the color white. So now we've got this very bright background, which is kind of like almost like I'm photographing this 3D rock in this high-key white studio. And I think it's pretty cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a turntable. Now you could just animate it spinning like this. Just spinning, but I think a turntable is going to help me get the desired effect that I want. The way we're going to do that is we're going to do Shift A. We're going to add an empty plane axis. And we're going to move that plane axis roughly to the center of the rock here. So it's roughly in the center. And I know that if I press Z right now and select wireframe, I can rotate around and just kind of center it by eye. And we're going to switch back to rendered view now. Holding Z, pressing rendered. Now what we're going to do is we're going to rename the empty axis, and I'm just going to call it turntable, just so things are a little more clear. So now I'm going to drag the mossy rock over the turntable and hold Shift to set it as a parent. Now what this does is it makes the turntable the primary thing that I rotate around, and the rock is within the turntable. So I'm going to take these axes and I can now rotate it, and I get a really nice clean rotation by doing this. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to start keyframing a rotation. So this is where animation comes into play. And it's not as hard as you think. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to go under the object properties of the turntable, clicking right here, and you're going to see these different rotation X, Y, and Z. So if you do X, rotates like that, Y like that, and Z like this. And we're going to want to use Z to get this animation. I'm going to right-click Z, and I'm going to hit Insert Keyframes right here where it is right now. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to go all the way to frame 250, which is the last frame. Type 359 in the Z field. That's 1 point away from 360. Right click and hit insert keyframes. Now, if I drag on the timeline here, you can see it rotates. And if I hit play, it'll rotate on a loop here. And as you can see, it's relatively seamless. Now, the only issue is with this animation is the way it speeds up and slows down. This has to do with the way Blender is currently interpolating the frames. I don't know exactly how to explain frame interpolation, but I do know how to make this so it's much smoother and steady, more consistent as a rotation. And the way we're going to do that is we're actually going to select the editor type right here, and we're going to go under an editor by holding and dragging this. We're going to go and find Dope Sheet. Select Dope Sheet. And select all the keys by dragging over these keyframes or doing Control A. Hit key, go under Interpolation mode, and you're going to select Linear. What Linear does is it makes it so it's just a consistent movement. So now when I hit play, it's moving at a consistent speed, and when the 3D model finishes this spin loop, it's going to look a lot more seamless. As you can see, it just kind of seamlessly transitions there. And the last thing we need to do to finish setting up this render is get our camera in. I'm going to select the camera up here. You can either select the 0 key on your number pad, or alternatively, you can select this little button right here that says toggle the camera view. Now make sure your camera is enabled in the viewport by clicking these little eye buttons. I'm going to toggle the camera view, and as you can see, it's super zoomed in right now. First thing I'm going to do with the camera is I'm going to go under the Camera Properties tab, which is right here. Go under Lens Unit. I'm going to select Field of View because I'm more comfortable with that measurement. I'm a gamer, so I'm always adjusting the field of view. And I know a field of view I like to use is, well, usually 100, but I'll just say 90 is a nice field of view. Now we're seeing a bit more of the rock here, which is good. If I go under Object Properties, I can actually start dragging the X, Y, and Z and toggling around until I get a little area that I like. I'm going to go slightly above this 3D model since there's some glitches underneath and angle it down like this. We're actually going to distance the camera away from it a little bit. And I think I'm going to, since I'm kind of doing this improvisationally here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here just to compress the depth down. My inner photographer is telling me to do that right now for some reason. I'm going to take a look here and see what this looks like from this angle. I mean, you know what, guys? I get it. I know what you're thinking. It's just a mossy rock. It's kind of boring. You know what? Whatever. We're doing this for the photogrammetry tutorial. It's pretty boring just looking at this rock. Maybe I could spice it up a little bit and like zoom it or something. I don't know. You know what? It's a rock. You know what I mean? What more are you gonna get? And this is fine. I'm just gonna take this. So yeah, I'm just making minor adjustments right now to the camera. Last thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna show you guys how to add a cool effect to the intro. This is pretty much useless for the render, but you can skip this section if you want in the description. If you're not interested in doing this, I'm just gonna make it. So we have this clip start. The way it works is you can determine if I drag clip start. As you can see, you're creating this clipping. And most 3D artists would be like, you know, set it to 0 so you can see everything. Well, I like the glitchiness of this. I'm kind of like, my little inner glitch artist is telling me to do this right now. So I'm going to set the clip start to like until I can't see anything. And I'm going to create a keyframe on the first frame here, frame 0. And I'd say about 60 frames in, it's going to go down to 0. And I'm going to insert a keyframe here. Now what that's going to do is it's going to make it so it fades in really quick, like that. And I think I'm going to take this as well, go under the dope sheet, change this to linear interpolation again. Again, guys, you can ignore this. You don't have to do these weird things that I like to do. But I recommend it. I recommend giving it a shot, you know, because it's just kind of fun to mess around with all the different weird things you can do in these 3D softwares. Just explore and experiment with the possibilities is what I'm really encouraging here. So I just created this weird animation just by using the clip start and inserting keyframes on different points. By modifying the clip start, you can kind of render this weird transition here. So what I did was here on frame 0, it starts with 46 meters of clipping or whatever. And then as it plays, it fades in. And then on frame 60, it's 20 meters on the clip start. And then right here, I'm just going to set that to 0, insert keyframe, so everything renders correctly. That'll be the first part of my loop that I'm creating. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to render our turntable loop animation in the form of images. To do that, I'm going to go under this little output properties tab and make sure I've got everything set up correct. Here you can change the X and Y resolution. Right now it's set to 1920 by 1080, which is standard, you know, 1080p HD resolution. Set to 100%. Make sure this is set to 100%. Otherwise, you will not be getting the full resolution. And you can choose the frame rate here and everything. You want 60 FPS, you want 30 frames a second. You get to choose how many frames a second. I'm just going to set it to 30 frames a second because the eye can only see 30 FPS. And under output, change the output directory from temporary. Hit files, go under whatever folder you want to save your image set in. In this case, I'm going to use where I saved the 3D model. Create a new directory by clicking the new directory button up here. Create a new folder, and I'm just going to call it rock animation. So we're going to double click that and hit accept. Now, as you can see, rock animation is set in here. PNG is set, and compression is minimal. I'm going to change it to JPEG just to speed things up because it takes a little longer to process PNGs in Blender. And I just want to get through with this animation here. JPEGs will probably look fine. Not so concerned. Now we've got all of our render properties set up. And if we hit play, you know, plays in real time pretty well. Now I'm going to go under this button right here. Up here it says render. And I'm going to click render animation. Boom. Now because it's a emission texture, there's no lighting, and because it's just 1080p, very simple, it's actually going to render pretty quickly right now. I mean, this is a very optimized scene that we've got here, and it's, you know, it's just ticking away at the frames here. So we're going to let this go until this finishes up. Results may vary depending on your 3D model, the resolution of your texture, how many polygons you have in your model will determine the speed. So I'm going to speed up the video right now and just finish out this 3D model. And there we go. We just finished all of the renders. I'm going to close Blender Render now and open up my File Explorer and navigate to my Photogrammetry folder. I'm going to go under the rock animation, and as you can see, we've got our animation. If I select the image and just scroll through it really quick by clicking, you can see there's a bit of a stop motion sort of animation we've got going on here. I'm just going to do one more thing, go under my camera, and I'm going to remove that cool clip effect by hitting clear keyframes. Now it's just the normal turntable from earlier. From there, I'm going to change. Now I'm just going to change the output directory. The reason I'm changing the output directory is because I want a new folder. I'm going to call this rock animation part 2. I don't know. And the reason I'm doing that is so it doesn't overwrite the old frames from the previous render. I'm gonna render an animation again. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want it to sort of fade in, and I want to spin once, but now I want it to keep spinning normally without the weird fade in. So now I'm gonna render out a normal turn for the video that I'm gonna create. There we go. So the second turntable animation has finished rendering for me. I'm going to combine these now into an animation, and I'm just gonna use Movie Studio, which is Movie Studio 16, which is the video editing software I have right now. You could probably apply this technique to a lot of different video editing softwares. In Movie Studio 16 Platinum, what I do, and this is just like Sony Vegas, if you have that. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go under Options, Preferences, Editing, and set the new still image length in seconds to 0.030. Just, you can kind of tap this counter here. So it's essentially one frame at, you know, whatever frames a second you're using, which I'm about to change as well. Now, whenever it imports a still image, it'll do it as a single frame. I'm gonna take the first part of my animation, hit Control A to select everything, and drag and drop it into Vegas here. And then right off the bat, I'm gonna take the second animation, Control A, Rock Animation Part 2, and drag and drop it directly after. It'll automatically sort of snap. And there's our little showcase video. Now from here, I'm just gonna go under my video frame, Track Effects, and add a little brightness and contrast, a little color corrector to it, and I'll even add a touch of sharpness, even though that's not always totally recommended. Gonna go under brightness and contrast, brighten it so the background's more white, bump up the contrast, just a touch, just a little touch. Color corrector, gonna add a touch of blueness in there. I love just adding a little color grade to the mix. Sharpen, I'm gonna move that down to 0.15, just a touch of sharpness on that. I'm just gonna add a saturation effect because I love to saturate. I love color. I love colorful things, bringing out the colors in life. I'm gonna crank up the amount, make it nice and vibrant. I love a good little touch of vibrance. If you want to get familiar with Sony Vegas or Movie Studio, I recommend watching some tutorials on the basics of Sony Vegas. And yeah, from here, just put some music to it, you know. Project render as, just gonna render it as a MP4 at 30 FPS, which is what we set in Blender. I'm gonna call it Mossy Rock. Hit render and boom, there we go, rendering. Here's our beautiful little photogrammetry showcase video. Be sure to leave a like. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment if you have any questions or if you just want to chat with me. I'd be happy to answer your inquiries. Again, I appreciate all the positive feedback and all the questions and attention my photogrammetry videos got. So I hope you found this video creatively inspirational, beneficial in getting you started with Blender and getting comfortable with just experimenting with digital art. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a nice day.